The screaming started before Ambassador Chen reached the council chamber doors. Not human screaming. The crystalline shriek of Vexari panic. A sound that turned blood to ice and set every primate instinct ablaze. Chen's hand moved to her sidearm before conscious thought caught up. Through the translucent walls of the Galactic Council's floating sanctum, she saw shadows scattering like startled fish. Then she saw the child. Human, maybe 6 years old, standing in the center of the Grand Council floor where no unauthorized person, let alone a child, should exist. The boy's back was to her, small shoulders rigid, head tilted at an angle that made Chen's tactical training whisper warnings she didn't want to hear. The council chamber had emptied of 200 alien dignitaries in under 30 seconds. Only the Queen remained. SSITAR, eternal matriarch of the Veiled Throne, hadn't moved from her seat. Her four eyes tracked the child with the absolute stillness of something deciding whether to strike or flee. The temperature in the chamber had dropped 10 degrees. Chen could see her breath misting in the recycled air. Ambassador. The Queen's voice carried across the chamber, each syllable precisely formed despite the translator's struggle with vexary resonance patterns. Explain this. Chen forced herself to walk forward, not run. Every nerve screamed to grab the child and retreat. Instead, she analyzed. The boy wore standard colony clothes, nothing formal. His hands were empty but clenched. A faint tremor ran through his small frame. Adrenaline or fear or something worse. I don't know who he is, Chen said. Protocol demanded she address the Queen with 17 layers of honorific. She used 3. This isn't authorized, obviously. Sithara's secondary eyes never left the child while her primary pair fixed on Chen. Yet he passed 7 security checkpoints, walked through quantum barriers that would atomize an unauthorized presence, and now stands before me radiating something that makes my genetic memory scream predator. The boy turned his head, just slightly. Enough for Chen to see the side of his face. Blood. Fresh. Not his, the wrong color, too violet, too thin. Vexari blood, and his eyes. Chen had seen that look before. Lagos. The Titan Belt incident. The flat, empty gaze of a human nervous system that had shifted into something older than civilization. Something that didn't negotiate. Child. The Queen's voice could have cut glass. Identify yourself. My name is Marcus Webb. The boy's voice was steady. Too steady. My sister is Maya Webb. She's 8. Yesterday, 3 Vexari guards took her from the human residential sector. They said humans didn't understand consequences, that we needed to learn our place. The chamber's temperature dropped another 5 degrees. N's combat implant activated automatically, flooding her system with tactical data. Exits sealed. Weapons, none within reach. Threat assessment, catastrophic. A human child, traumatized and possibly in shock, standing before the most powerful being in known space. One wrong word and humanity's fragile alliance with the Galactic Council would shatter. But that wasn't what made her hands shake. It was the blood. And the way the boy stood, and the absolute certainty in her gut that she was watching something the galaxy wasn't ready to see. Where is your sister now? Sithara asked. Her voice had changed. Quieter. The kind of quiet that preceded violence or wisdom, sometimes both. Safe. Marcus didn't blink. I made sure of it. And the guards? I made sure of that too. Silence, stretched like a blade. Chen watched the Queen's scales ripple, a Vexari threat display that could trigger prey panic in 47 known species. Marcus didn't flinch. You're 6 years old, Sithara said. 7 next month. Coming here? Threatening? I didn't threaten anyone. Marcus's voice finally cracked, just slightly, a hairline fracture in his control. I'm reporting a crime. Article 7 of the Galactic Protection Act. Any citizen can report violations directly to ruling authority when local enforcement fails. I tried the station commander. I tried the council representatives. Nobody listened. Chen's mind raced through the regulations, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. The kid was technically, impossibly, legally correct. So you circumvented 7 security checkpoints, the Queen said. Explain how. I learned patterns. Vexari security operates on predictable cycles. Your guards think in terms of adult threats. They scan for weapons, for adult biometrics, for aggressive intent. They don't scan for a child who knows how to be patient. Chen felt something cold settle in her chest. This wasn't a traumatized kid lashing out. This was calculated, planned, and that made it infinitely more dangerous. The blood on your face, Cesara said. Whose is it? Marcus touched his cheek, looked at his fingers as if just noticing the violet stain. Guard Captain Thessex. He's alive. They're all alive. But they won't ever touch another human child. The Queen rose, slowly. Each movement deliberate. Her full height exceeded 3 meters, her forearms spreading in a gesture that could mean welcome or war depending on context. The air itself seemed to thicken. Show me, she commanded. And Chen realized with dawning horror that the Queen wasn't angry. She was fascinated. The medical bay was chaos wrapped in emergency lighting. 4 Vexery guards occupied the isolation pods, their bodies locked in regenerative stasis. The attending physicians, a mix of species all chosen for their supposed unflappability, scattered when the Queen entered. Only the chief medical officer remained, a Thorgassi whose 12 fingers worked 3 diagnostic panels simultaneously. Majesty, the Thorgassi chirped, its translation device struggling with medical terminology and panic. The injuries are unprecedented. Scythera moved between the pods with the precision of a surgeon examining her work. Chen stayed close to Marcus, one hand on his shoulder, protective or restraining, she wasn't sure which. The boy's trembling had increased. Coming down from adrenaline, probably, she hoped. No toxins, the Thorgassi continued. No weapons detected. All injuries are physical. Blunt force trauma, joint manipulation, pressure point strikes. Whoever did this understood Vexari physiology better than some of our own combat trainers. Guard Captain Thessic. His scales had turned a gray-purple of extreme pain, his breathing assisted by machines. 6 broken ribs, the Thorgassi read from the display. Shattered primary manipulator. Fractured ocular ridge. Severe trauma to the communication organ. Non-lethal. Precisely non-lethal. Every injury calculated to cause maximum pain while ensuring survival. His voice had lost its earlier steadiness. I remembered the anatomy lessons. I remembered where it would hurt, but not kill. Chen's grip tightened on his shoulder. Marcus! He was laughing. The boy's words came faster now, pressure building behind a dam. When he took Maya, she was crying, and he was laughing. He said humans were soft, said we were prey species playing at civilization, that we needed to remember what we were. The Queen turned, all 4 eyes focused on the child, with an intensity that made Chen's tactical implants scream warnings. So you showed him what you were, Cesara said. I showed him what he was. Marcus looked up, meeting the Queen's gaze with something that should have been impossible for a 7-year-old human to hold. Bleeding. Begging me to stop. I asked him if he felt soft, if he felt like prey. Even the machines seemed to hold their collective breath. Chen had reviewed thousands of first contact reports, had studied every known species' psychological profiles, had been trained in the careful diplomacy required to maintain humanity's position as the newest and weakest member of the Galactic Council. Everything in her training screamed that this moment was a disaster, that she needed to apologize, to distance humanity from this violent child, to salvage what she could from the situation spiraling toward catastrophe. But she'd also been human long enough to know what she was seeing. Not a monster, not a criminal, a child who'd done monstrous things because the adults who should have protected his sister had failed, who'd taken the galaxy's most sophisticated security apparatus apart with nothing but patience and knowledge and the kind of desperate courage that evolution had hammered into humanity's bones over millions of years of being something else's dinner. There's more, the Thorgassi said, tentacles twitching nervously. The other 3 guards, they're not injured, not physically. What do you mean? Chen asked. Psychological trauma. Severe. They're conscious but non-responsive, just staring. Whatever they saw, the doctor trailed off. Marcus closed his eyes. I let them watch. I wanted them to remember, to know what happens when you hurt something that looks soft and easy. The Queen moved. Fast. Faster than Chen's enhanced reflexes could track. One moment she was across the room, the next she was kneeling before Marcus, bringing her massive frame down until her primary eyes were level with his. Chen's hand moved toward her sidearm, stopped. Something in the Queen's posture wasn't aggression. How did you find them? Cithara asked. The guards who took your sister. Cross-reference patrol schedules. Vexery off-duty protocols are public record. You believe transparency prevents corruption. So I knew exactly where Thessic would be. The others were predictable after that. You're 7 years old, the Queen repeated, softer this time. My dad's a xenobiologist. My mom works system security. I grew up studying aliens, learning patterns, understanding how different species think. Marcus's voice finally broke, child grief bleeding through tactical control. I learned because I thought it was interesting. I learned so I could make friends when we got to the station. Not for this. A single tear tracked down his face, cutting a clean line through the dried violet blood. Sistera raised one massive hand. Chen tensed. The Queen's claw, sharp enough to cut through duraplast, extended toward the boy's face, gentle, impossibly gentle. She caught the tear on the edge of her talon, held it up to the light. I have ruled for 3 centuries, the Queen said. I have seen 1,000 species kneel. I have watched empires rise and fall. I thought I understood predation. The Korthiks are hunters, brutal, efficient, merciless. The Dravik are warriors, honorable, fierce, proud. But you, she looked at the tear, then back at Marcus. You're something different, aren't you? I just wanted my sister back, Marcus whispered. And that makes you the most dangerous thing in this chamber. Sisathera stood, her full height restored, because you didn't hunt for pleasure or honor or territory. You hunted because something you loved was threatened, and you were willing to become a monster to protect it. She turned to Chen. Ambassador, your species has been on the council for 3 years. In that time, you've been adequate. Compliant. We thought we understood you.
Persistence predators, endurance hunters.
Clever but weak. Useful but controllable. The Queen's scales rippled through a color sequence Chen's implant tagged as profound realization. We were wrong. Your Majesty, Chen started, falling back on protocol because nothing else made sense anymore. This incident is being classified under my personal authority, SSI Thara interrupted. The guards will recover. They will be disciplined. Severely. The child will face no charges, but the security breaches were our failure, not his. The Queen moved to the nearest terminal, her claws dancing across controls designed for human-sized fingers with unexpected dexterity. I'm reviewing the last 48 hours of sensor logs, Marcus Webb's movements, his sister's abduction, the guard's communications. The screens lit up with data streams. Chen watched timestamps align. Video feeds showing Maya's terrified face as armored Vexery dragged her from a playground. Audio logs of her screaming for help while station personnel looked away. Marcus's small form moving through shadows, analyzing, planning, becoming something the galaxy hadn't expected. They called her prey, S.I. Thara said, reading from the transcript. Thessic specifically used that word. Said humans needed to learn their place in the food chain. That your species' emotional attachments were weakness to be exploited. Not quite a laugh. Not quite a sob. He doesn't think that anymore, the boy said. The Queen closed the displays. Turned to face them both. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of authority that had shaped interstellar policy for 300 years. Every species in this council achieved spaceflight through a different path. The Vexery mastered patience. We learned to wait in perfect stillness for prey to come to us. The Korthiks developed pack tactics, overwhelming force through coordination. The Thorgassi manipulated their environment until survival became engineering. She gestured at Marcus with one claw. Humans walked upright across open savanna and refused to die. You weren't the fastest, weren't the strongest, weren't the smartest, but you were stubborn enough to chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Patient enough to track for days, social enough to work in groups, and desperate enough to eat anything, survive anywhere, adapt to everything. Anthropology reports, evolutionary biology assessments. Always delivered with faint condescension, humanity as the Council's ambitious newcomers, trying so hard to keep up with ancient civilizations. This was different. We thought we were safe from you, the Queen continued, because you seemed peaceful, because you followed rules, because you smiled and negotiated and tried so hard to fit in. We forgot the most important lesson of predation. She knelt again, meeting Marcus's eyes. The most dangerous predator isn't the one that hunts constantly, it's the one that knows how to wait. That looks harmless until the moment it strikes. That can live peacefully among its food until survival demands otherwise. Marcus wiped his face, smearing violet blood across his cheek. I'm not a predator. I'm just a kid who wanted his sister safe. Exactly, Cicera said. That's what makes you terrifying. You don't kill for sport or honor. You kill for love. And there's no defense against that because it only activates when we've already crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. The Queen stood, addressed Chen directly. I'm calling an emergency council session. Full attendance. Mandatory. My Majesty, if this is about sanctions against humanity, it's about protection. Sissathara's scales flashed cobalt blue, a color Chen's implant translated as fierce resolve. For your species and ours, we need to understand what we're sharing space with. Not to fear you, to respect you. Because today a child taught 4 trained warriors a lesson about assumptions. Tomorrow, she gestured at the medical pods. Tomorrow we need to ensure this never happens again, because if humanity decides we're a threat, she trailed off. Chen felt the weight of that unfinished sentence settle over the room like gravity. We're not a threat, she said carefully. Integration. Partnership. I know. But partnership requires understanding, and we clearly don't understand you as well as we thought. The Queen moved toward the exit, her massive frame somehow graceful in the confined space. 3 hours. Full council. Bring the child. Marcus isn't on trial. No. Cesare looked back over her shoulder, all 4 eyes gleaming with something Chen couldn't quite identify. He's going to teach. I want every ambassador to see what we saw. To understand what happens when we mistake patience for weakness. Adaptation for submission. She paused at the doorway. Your species has a saying, doesn't it? About sleeping dogs? Chen nodded slowly. Let sleeping dogs lie. Because when you wake them, they bite. The Queen's scales rippled through colors that didn't translate. Ancient Vixari emotional ranges humanity hadn't learned to read yet. Today we learned humanity's version of that lesson. Now I need to make sure the entire council understands it before someone else decides to wake the dog. The medical bay's doors sealed behind her with a soft hiss. Chen stood in silence, one hand still on Marcus's shoulder. The boy had started shaking again, harder now. The adrenaline crash was hitting. Soon would come the tears, the shock, the psychological aftermath of what he'd done and seen and become. But not yet. Am I in trouble? Marcus asked quietly. Chen wanted to lie. Wanted to tell him everything would be fine. Instead, she knelt down, mirroring what the Queen had done, but feeling none of that ancient authority. Just a human trying to help another human through something impossible. I don't know, she said honestly. What you did was wrong, Marcus. Taking justice into your own hands. Hurting people, even people who hurt you first. That's not how we're supposed to handle things. I know, but you probably saved lives, Chen continued. Other kids, other families, because now they know. Now they'll think twice. She touched his face, turning him to meet her eyes. That doesn't make it right. But it makes it complicated. I didn't want to hurt anyone, Marcus whispered. I just wanted Maya safe. And I wanted them to understand that we're not prey. That just because we don't have scales or claws or armor doesn't mean we're weak. You made your point, Chen said. The Queen saw it. Now the whole council will see it. And maybe that changes things. Maybe it makes humanity's position stronger, or maybe... She trailed off, thinking about the fear she'd seen in the Queen's eyes. Not fear of violence, fear of what violence meant. Maybe they'll be afraid of us, Marcus finished. Maybe. Is that better than them hurting us? So she did what humans had done for millions of years when words failed. She pulled the boy into a hug, let him collapse against her shoulder, felt his small body shake with sobs that had been building since his sister was taken. Outside the medical bay, station security was undoubtedly scrambling. Diplomatic channels would be lighting up. Humanity's position in the Galactic Council, already precarious, was about to face its greatest test. But in this moment, Chen focused on the child, on the impossible burden he'd carried, on the monster he'd become and the innocence he'd lost and the brutal lesson he'd taught, and she wondered if the Queen was right. If humanity had been hiding in plain sight all along, not weak. Not harmless, just patient, waiting to see if the galaxy would treat them fairly. Now the galaxy knew. The sleeping dog was awake. The council chamber filled with the kind of silence that preceded storms. Every seat occupied, every species represented. Chen had attended dozens of council sessions, routine votes, trade negotiations, the careful diplomatic dance of maintaining interstellar peace. This felt different. The air hummed with tension, with fear barely controlled, with curiosity sharp enough to cut. Marcus sat beside her, small and exhausted, and trying not to show it. Someone had cleaned the blood from his face, given him fresh clothes. But nothing could hide the shadows under his eyes or the tremor in his hands. Sistera entered last. Protocol dictated she always did, an entrance designed to remind everyone exactly who held ultimate authority. Today she moved with even more deliberation, each step calculated for maximum impact. "We gather today," the Queen began, her voice resonating through translation systems in 73 languages, "to discuss a threat to Council stability." Murmurs rippled through the assembled diplomats. Chen felt Marcus tense beside her. "Not the threat you expect," Thara continued. "Yesterday, 7-year-old Marcus Webb, human, bypassed our most sophisticated security systems, infiltrated this chamber, confronted me personally, and did so to report a crime that local authorities had ignored." She paused. Let that sink in. The crime being the abduction and abuse of his sister by Vexari security personnel who believed humans were too weak, too compliant, too prey-like to demand accountability. The Vexari delegation, 14 strong, their scales flashing agitated colors, began protesting loudly. "Those guards acted independently. This is a clear violation of station protocols. Humans have no right to silence." The Queen didn't shout, didn't need to. Her voice carried absolute authority. "I've reviewed the evidence. Thesic and his subordinates acted with deliberate cruelty. They targeted a human child specifically to send a message about species hierarchy, about humanity's place, about what they perceived as weakness." Maya Webb's terrified face filled the chamber. Audio played, her screams for help, the guards' laughter, bystanders turning away. Chen watched the assembly's reaction. Some looked away. Others leaned forward. The Korthix ambassador, a warrior species that respected honor above all, bared his teeth in disgust. "Then this happened," Sidara said. "New footage." Marcus, small and determined, moving through station corridors, using ventilation shafts adults couldn't access, timing his movements to security patrol gaps, approaching Thesic in an off-duty area. What followed lasted 90 seconds. Chen had seen combat, had trained with the best, had faced enemies in conditions designed to break the human spirit. She watched a 7-year-old child dismantle a trained warrior with precision that made her tactical implant flag the footage as potential CGI. Impossible for someone that small, that young, that untrained. Except it wasn't impossible. It was human. Marcus used every advantage evolution had granted his species. Small size to get under guards' defenses, flexible joints to twist in unexpected directions, precision grip to target pressure points, and most terrifying, the absolute refusal to stop. Thesic went down, got up, went down again, tried to flee. Marcus pursued with the patient inevitability of a persistence hunter tracking wounded prey across open ground. The footage cut off just before the final moments. Chen suspected the Queen had edited out the worst of it. 4 guards, Sistara said. All elite, all trained in combat against species ranging from Korthix warriors to Dravik shock troops, neutralized by a human child, using nothing but his body and the determination to protect his sibling. Your Majesty, if I may, this is impressive. Honorable, even. The child defended his clan. Our species would celebrate such courage. Your species broadcasts your aggression, the Queen replied. You are fierce, and everyone knows it. You have honor codes, formal challenges, understood boundaries. This? She gestured at the frozen image of Marcus standing over Thesic's broken form. This is different. The child smiled and learned, and seemed harmless until the moment he struck. No warning, no challenge, just patient calculation followed by overwhelming violence. The Thorgassi trade minister's 12 fingers twitched nervously. Are you suggesting humans are deceptive? Treacherous. I'm suggesting humans are survivors, Eswesartha said, and we failed to understand what that means. Every species here achieved dominance on their homeworld through a specific adaptation. The Vexari evolved perfect ambush instincts. The Korthix developed pack coordination. The Thorgassi built tools. Humans? She looked directly at Chen. Humans refused to die. They adapted to every environment. Survived ice ages and droughts and predators that should have wiped them out. And they did it by being stubborn enough to outlast threats and smart enough to learn from everything that tried to kill them. Marcus shifted in his seat. Chen could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes on them both. "Stand, child," the Queen commanded. Marcus looked at Chen. She nodded. The boy stood, his small frame dwarfed by the Grand Council chamber but somehow filling the space with presence that shouldn't be possible. "Tell them," Sithara said. "Tell the council what you told me about learning." Marcus's voice came out quiet at first, then stronger. "My parents taught me to study, to watch, to understand. They said knowledge was how humanity survived, by learning faster than threats could kill us. So I learned about vexillary biology, Cortex honor codes, Thorgassi engineering. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone, because I wanted to understand, to make friends, to fit in." He looked around the chamber, meeting eyes that had evolved on a dozen different worlds. "But when they took Maya, I realized something. All that knowledge, all those patterns I'd learned, they weren't just for friendship, they were for survival. Because the same brain that figures out how to be nice to you can figure out how to stop you. And you won't see it coming because we look soft. We smile, we try to get along. Yet I would be so happy saying, until something we love is threatened. Then all that knowledge, all that patience, it becomes something else." Silence. Absolute. Even the translation system seemed to hesitate. The Vexari delegation leader, an elder diplomat named Synthara, rose slowly. "Your Majesty, this child attacked council security personnel. Regardless of provocation, there must be consequences. Otherwise, we set a precedent that vigilante violence is acceptable." "I agree," the Queen said. Chen's heart stopped. Marcus went rigid. "The guards who abducted Maya Webb will face trial under Galactic Protection Act violations. Thesic will be stripped of rank and sentenced to rehabilitation. The other 3 will undergo psychological evaluation and retraining. Furthermore, I am ordering a comprehensive review of all security protocols to prevent such abuses in the future." "And the child?" Synthara pressed. "The child," Sithara said slowly, "did what any reasonable being would do when proper channels failed. He protected his family. However, the methods used, while effective, cannot become standard practice. Therefore, I'm assigning Ambassador Chen full responsibility for Marcus Webb's rehabilitation and oversight. He will participate in council-sponsored programs designed to channel his talents productively. Not perfect, but survivable." Additionally, the Queen continued, and her voice took on an edge that made every diplomat in the chamber snap to attention. "I'm proposing an immediate amendment to council protocols, the creation of a Cross-Species Youth Protection Act. Any crime against a minor of any species will be investigated by neutral council authority, not local security, and any species found systematically targeting another species' children will face immediate sanction up to and including council expulsion." The chamber erupted, voices in 73 languages all trying to speak at once. The Vexar delegation looked stunned. The Cortex were nodding. The Thorgassi delegation huddled together, calculating political implications. SSI Thara let them argue for exactly 30 seconds before calling for order.
"This isn't negotiable," she said flatly.
"I'm invoking Article 1, Subsection 7, Emergency Powers. The Act is now law, effective immediately. Anyone wishing to challenge it may request formal review in 6 months per standard procedure. Article 1, Subsection 7. Chen's implant pulled up the reference. Emergency powers granted to the ruling monarch in cases of imminent existential threat to council stability. It hadn't been invoked in over a century. "Your Majesty," Synthara said carefully, "you're treating this as an existential threat? One child's violent response to a local incident?" "I'm treating this as a revelation," the Queen corrected. "We invited humanity into the council believing we understood them. We were wrong. They are not the ambitious newcomers we thought. They are not the weak species trying to prove themselves. They are survivors who will do absolutely anything to protect what they love. And we just learned what happens when we threaten that." She gestured at the holographic display, still showing Marcus's final moments with Thesic. "That child weighed 30 kilograms. Thesic weighs 140. By every physical measure, this should have been impossible. But humans don't fight with just muscle and claw. They fight with knowledge and determination and the absolute certainty that they will find a way or make one. They fought their way to the top of Earth's food chain against creatures stronger, faster, and more naturally armed. They survived ice ages and plagues and wars that should have ended them, and they did it by being too stubborn to quit and too smart to make the same mistake twice. The Queen's scales rippled through a color sequence Chen's implant finally translated. Profound respect mixed with healthy fear. So yes, Sistara continued, I consider this an existential moment. Because we have three choices. One, we can treat humans as the threat they potentially are and respond with fear and suppression. Two, we can continue underestimating them until someone else learns this lesson the hard way. Or three, we can adapt. We can recognize what we're sharing space with and adjust our behavior accordingly. Thesic called an 8-year-old girl prey. He was wrong. There are no prey species in this council. There are only partners who've chosen peace over alternatives we should all hope never to see. Today we remember that. Tomorrow we make sure everyone in council territory understands it. Marcus swayed slightly. Chen caught him, kept him upright. The emotional toll was catching up. Adrenaline crash, exhaustion, the weight of standing before galactic power and somehow changing it. The child needs rest, the Queen observed. Ambassador Chen, take him. Medical evaluation, psychological support, whatever he needs. All expenses covered by council emergency funds. Chen stood, helping Marcus to his feet. Started toward the exit. Ambassador. The Queen had descended from her throne, moving closer with that impossible grace. Your species has been asking for more representation in council affairs. For positions of authority beyond your current status as provisional members. I've been resistant. Concerned that humanity wasn't ready for the responsibility. And now? Chen asked. Now I think we weren't ready for humanity. Sithara's eyes held something Chen hadn't seen before. Genuine curiosity mixed with cautious optimism. I want human advisors integrated into council security. Your perspectives on threat assessment. Your understanding of vulnerabilities others might miss. The galaxy is changing. Ancient empires are stagnating. New species are emerging. We need fresh thinking. And apparently we need people who see problems from angles evolved on a death world where everything wanted to eat you. It was the opening humanity had been working toward for 3 years. Formal integration. Real power. And it was happening because a 7-year-old boy had shown the galaxy what humans were capable of when pushed. I'll submit a proposal, Chen said carefully. Do that. Meanwhile, take care of your young hunter. He's earned rest. Chen guided Marcus toward the exit. Behind them, the council erupted into debate, voices arguing protocol, implementation, political implications, the standard chaos of galactic governance. But something had shifted. Chen felt it in the way delegates watched them leave, in the way conversations quieted as they passed. Not fear, exactly. Not respect, quite. Something in between. The recognition that humanity wasn't what they'd thought. That peace was a choice, not an inevitability. That the smiling diplomats and friendly scientists and eager-to-please newcomers had depths the galaxy was only beginning to understand. They reached the corridor outside, the doors sealed. Suddenly, they were alone in the soft artificial light of the station's public areas. Marcus's legs gave out. Chen caught him, lifted him, despite regulations against unnecessary physical contact with diplomatic personnel. Right now, he wasn't diplomatic personnel. He was a kid who'd done terrible things for the right reasons and needed someone to tell him he was still human. Did I do the right thing? Marcus asked, against her shoulder. No, Chen said honestly. You did a necessary thing. There's a difference. Will Maya be okay? She's with your parents. Safe. Scared, probably, but safe. Because of you. I hurt people. I know. But I wasn't sorry while I was doing it. I'm still not sorry. His voice cracked. Does that make me bad? Chen thought about Kandahar. About choices made in impossible situations. About the difference between morality and survival. It makes you human, she said. We're complicated. We can feel wrong about something and know it was necessary. Can regret actions and not regret results. The galaxy runs on simple categories, predator and prey, strong and weak, right and wrong. Humanity's always existed in the spaces between. Station personnel stepped aside, their expressions ranging from confusion to something like awe. Word had spread. The human child who'd torn through security, the Queen's emergency proclamation, the shift in council dynamics that was still rippling outward. Ambassador Chen? A small voice. Marcus, sounding very young suddenly. What happens now? Then you heal. Then you learn to live with what you did, the good and the bad. And maybe, if we're lucky, the galaxy learns something too. What? About humanity's 3-year struggle to prove themselves worthy of council membership. About the irony that violence had accomplished what diplomacy couldn't. That peace isn't weakness, she said finally. That patience isn't surrender. That sometimes the quietest voice in the room is quiet because it's waiting to see if words will work before trying something else. She reached the medical wing, triggered the doors with her ID chip. Inside, trauma specialists waited. Multiple species, all briefed on human psychology, ready to help a child process the impossible. But before they took him, before the healing could begin, Marcus looked up at her one last time. "The Queen was scared of me," he said. Not a question. An observation. Yes. Good. His eyes, so young, so old, held certainty that broke Chen's heart. Maybe now they'll think twice before they hurt us. Before they hurt anyone. Chen had no response to that. No diplomatic answer. No counseling protocol. Just the cold understanding that Marcus was right. Fear was sometimes the only language power understood. Humans had just taught the galaxy a new word in that language. She watched the medical team take him. Watched the doors close. Stood in the empty corridor processing what had happened and what it meant and where humanity went from here. Her comm chimed. Message from Earth. High priority encryption. She opened it. Ambassador Chen. Reports indicate significant incident involving human minor and Galactic Council security. Requesting full briefing. Also noting unusual diplomatic communications from Queen Sithara's office regarding human integration into Council authority structures. Please advise on situation status and potential opportunities. Chen stared at the message. Potential opportunities. Earth's diplomatic corps smelled blood in the water, saw advantage. They'd want to know if Marcus's actions could be leveraged, if humanity's new reputation as dangerous when provoked could translate to political capital. I'd be so happy that it was my dad making goat sound, for making blood in different parts of it. I didn't care for anything to save it. About the galaxy, learning that humans were apex predators who'd chosen cooperation but never forgotten how to hunt. Her fingers moved over the comm interface, composing a response that would shape humanity's next steps in galactic politics. That would determine whether they used this moment as a weapon or a warning, whether Marcus became a symbol of human strength or a cautionary tale about the cost of survival. Situation contained, she typed. Details to follow in secure briefing. Recommended careful approach. We've gained respect today. Let's not lose it by overplaying our hand. Humanity's strength is that we can be both partner and predator. We've just shown predator. Now we need to show them we remember how to be partner too. She sent it. Hoped Earth's politicians would listen. Doubted they would. Outside the medical wing's windows, the station rotated through its artificial night cycle. Thousands of species living together in controlled harmony. A fragile peace built on mutual respect and careful boundaries and the understanding that everyone benefited from cooperation. Marcus had shattered one of those boundaries. Had shown what happened when respect failed, when boundaries were violated, when someone mistook patience for weakness. The galaxy was reeling, reassessing, recognizing that humanity wasn't what they'd thought. Chen just hoped they remembered the most important part, that humanity had chosen peace. That violence was the backup plan, not the preference. That the sleeping dog could wake up, could bite, and then could choose to go back to sleep. If you didn't make it prove itself again. Behind the medical wing doors, Marcus slept. Exhausted. Traumatized. 7 years old and carrying weight no child should bear. But alive. His sister was alive. And the galaxy had learned a lesson written in Vexari blood and human tears. Chen turned away from the window, headed toward her office, toward the mountain of diplomatic aftermath waiting for her. Toward humanity's complicated future in a galaxy that had just discovered what humans really were. Survivors. Always, no matter the cost. The sleeping dog had woken up, shown its teeth, made its point. Now came the hard part, convincing the galaxy it could sleep again. That humans were more than their capacity for violence. That the child who'd broken warriors was still a child who wanted friends and peace and a place to belong. Chen hoped they'd listen. But she knew, with the cold certainty of 3 years navigating galactic politics, that some species only understood strength, only respected fear. For them, Marcus had become the most important ambassador humanity had. Not the one they'd chosen, not the one they'd wanted, but the one the galaxy needed to see. The predator in prey's clothing, the monster protecting innocence, the sleeping dog that bit when kicked. Human, in all its complicated, terrible, beautiful glory.